median 50th percentile person on my team was making 500. I do think that there's definitely some data engineering roles that are going to be replaced.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about data engineering with none other than Zach Wilson. Zach, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Zach is currently in Seattle and we just hosted a meetup together. And after this meetup, we thought we would create some content for all of you. So thank you, Zach, for being here. And I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So let's jump in, because I am pretty sure when you became a data engineer, data engineering did not exist.
Yeah, like I actually started my career as like a data analyst kind of Tableau guy. That's like what I did at my very first job. And I recognized, at least for that role back then, this is like 2014, like 10 years ago. And I recognized, I was like, I don't want to be doing this. Like I'm done. Like, because I feel like I mastered Tableau in like 9 months. And I was like, this is as much as this tool can do. Like you can't go further. And so that's when I kind of got bored of that role. And I was like, I need to go somewhere else. And then like I read a stat. Stat was that 90% of the world's data had been created in the last 18 months.
I read the same stat.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm telling you, and I was like, damn, I need to get in there, right?
Yeah.
And like, so that's when I joined this startup called Think Big Analytics.
Okay.
And the other one, I got obsessed with like the yellow elephant, Hadoop, right? This like, I was just very drawn to that elephant. I was like, I need to learn this elephant. And I remember I made a post back then where I was like, this elephant is about to become my entire life, right? And I did not understand like how true that post would end up being. But like, then I worked at Think Big for a while. I was not there very long because what happened was Think Big got acquired by Teradata, and Teradata is like this corporate company, and like you gotta like wear like freaking like business like a button-down shirt. Like it was like very corporate, very corporate. I was there for like 6 months, 7 months, and I was just like, I'm like, I hate it here.
Yeah,
I don't like this. This is not the company I got hired for. I thought I was joining like some hip startup.
Exactly.
And then and I was like, this is not it for me. And then I left. I left and did like some software stuff for a little bit, like 6 months, where I literally like went from Utah to Washington, D.C., did software engineering for 6 months, and then I got a job at Facebook doing data engineering in San Francisco, so I moved again. And yeah, 2016 was a messy year for me where I was just driving all the time. I felt like that's all I was doing that year. But then once I got in at Facebook, like that's when I felt like I actually was like doing real data engineering, and I was like getting into it more. Like that's where we were using like a lot of Hive back then. It was a lot of Hive and this thing called Data Swarm, which is essentially Airflow.
Meta, Netflix, Airbnb, and then entrepreneurship. I want to talk about Netflix and Airbnb and Meta. Like, how was the culture different between the three?
Oh, they're very different. So like Facebook, one of the things that is great about Facebook / Meta is that like it's very friendly. Everyone is very collaborative. In some ways, I actually felt like it was too collaborative, right? Where I was like, I'm just trying to get my work done, and then because like, and then people are like, hey Zach, I have a question. Hey Zach, I have a question. I'm like, dude, I get 30 minutes a day to work on things, right? Like, and
sounds familiar.
And so like. And then Netflix was not as much that way, right? Well, and one of the other things, at least for me in my journey there, was like I got hired at Netflix and when I was really young, especially for Netflix, because so when I joined Netflix, I was 24, and the next youngest person on my team was 35. Okay. So like there was an 11-year gap between me and the next youngest person on my team. And so like for me, definitely at Netflix, the culture was still very collaborative, but also people like had their own lives, their own families, they have their own like stuff, like and all that stuff. And like I for me in my relationship to work at Netflix though, I just had imposter syndrome the whole time because it was just like I was like I don't belong here. Like I'm working with all these really talented people. Like why am I here too? Yeah. Right. And so I just felt like I have to work to like prove that I belong here. Right. Yeah, for sure.
Did you get to that point then, like where your imposter syndrome went away?
Yeah, like, it was like I felt like I was after about a year especially when I got like my first big win with this like graph database thing I was working on, like I was like, okay, I belong here. Okay. I belong here.
I love
for
that.
sure.
I love that. I feel like especially like first year for anybody like who's just starting out, it's always like because I had a similar experience. First year, such a big imposter syndrome, and then after delivering some stuff, I'm like, oh no, I think I got it. Like I can do it. So
definitely.
I know you started when you got your first job. You started at 80K. How did that progression go from 80K to Meta, Netflix, and then Airbnb? 600K, that's like unheard of.
Yeah.
So how did you do that? How do people do that?
Yeah, it's a journey, like, and it was actually something that I even was surprised by myself, especially like when I got that job making 80K at Teradata back when I had to wear a button-down shirt and I hated it. Like, my dream for myself was like, I'm like, dude, if I can get to 200, I will be such a baller. I will be like, this is gonna be my life. And I thought 200 was like when I'm 35, right? When I'm like 10 years deep, 15 years deep, that's when I'm gonna hit 200. I learned a couple things about it. Like, a big thing about it is like, you need to get into the system in big tech. That's a big part of it, is like if you can get that experience in, especially Meta specifically, I feel like they do a great job at like investing in their engineers, better than Amazon, I feel, because Amazon really like holds that senior promotion as like you gotta really like work incredibly hard to get senior, whereas a Meta, like they like encourage people more. Like my friend Ryan, right, he went from junior to staff at Meta in 3 years. He just got promoted every year.
Wow.
Right.
You have to do that at Meta, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they
essentially,
want you to get promoted.
they push you. They
Yeah,
really do.
yeah.
And like, I mean, it's good and bad. I feel like, because it's like, it's good like if
So
you
much
want to
pressure.
grow,
Yeah.
but it's bad if you want like a life.
Yeah.
Right?
If you want to chill, if you want to coast, Meta is not the place for you.
No, that's Google.
Or Airbnb.
Yeah, or Airbnb. Well, yeah, both are really great. And so for me, like when I got in at Facebook, so I went from 80, and then like a year later, because I was making 80K in 2015 at Teradata, and then when I got in at Facebook, it was like 185. I've only actually ever been internally promoted one time in my career.
Wow.
One time.
Where
and it
was
was
that?
at Facebook. At Facebook, because I got hired as a junior engineer at Facebook, and I got promoted to L4.
Okay.
Right? That's the only promo I've ever actually gotten. So going to L4 bumped me to like 230-ish, right? And then I was like, I'm done. I want to be a software engineer. And I'm like, then I go to Netflix. Netflix is crazy. Netflix is a crazy
And
company.
they give you all cash.
Yeah, they give you all cash just up front. Here you go. We're going to pay you as much as like the market will give you, right? And I actually made a mistake. I made a big mistake when I got my interview at Netflix. I probably lost $100,000 from this mistake. So I accepted my initial offer at Netflix. I accepted was 365K, because going from 220 to 365, I was overjoyed,
Yeah.
right?
You're like, this
I
is
actually
great.
learned though. I learned that the median for my team, not the highest paid guy, the median 50th percentile person on my team was making 500. Right? So, and I didn't even know about that. I just was like so excited to get in at Netflix. I learned about that about 6 months deep into my time.
Were they expecting you to negotiate? Is that why they gave you a low offer?
Yeah, I thought I was being smart. So what I said was like, I won't accept anything less than what an E5 makes at Meta, right? And they gave me exactly that, right?
You basically.
Yeah, and like, but they would have given me more than $100,000 more, like had I freaking like actually like done my research.
That's why you never give the first number.
Yeah, never. And good news though was that like ultimately after about 6-7 months at Netflix, I got onto a very like senior, like borderline staff level project, like this graph database project, and I was able to negotiate up. I was able to negotiate up in my first year at Netflix from 365 to 550, right? And then I was like, damn, that was like, I've never had a raise like that before. I was like, this is a crazy raise.
Crazy, especially if it's all cash.
Yeah, it's all cash, right?
Your bank account is probably freaking out.
Yeah, the taxes, man.
Don't talk to me about taxes.
On the topic of tech salary, I analyzed entry-level data scientist salary using this powerful AI tool that you should know about. It's called Julius AI. Think of it like a data analyst or a data scientist that is available at your fingertips that can write Python code for you. And yes, if you're wondering, it is 10 times better than ChatGPT advanced analysis. Don't believe it? Let me show you. So the first thing we're gonna do is find a file that we're gonna use for data analysis. Next thing I do is I go to Julius. So here I have an option to either upload the file or connect it to Google Sheets. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to filter the data with 0 or 1 year of experience. And the coolest thing is that it writes code while doing it. So if you're just learning Python or R, yes, it can do R. It has R capabilities as well. So if you want to learn, this is actually a great place to learn Python and R while it's doing the data analysis for you. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to create visualization of data scientist salary by company in Seattle. And it has created the visualization for me. Basically, looking at this plot, I can tell that Uber pays the highest amount of entry-level salary to data scientists, followed by Amazon, then Zillow, and then Facebook. So as you can see that it has not only created a visualization for me, it has also given me additional prompts and things that I can ask you. This took me less than 3 minutes. Imagine if you had access to it. Actually, you do. You can try Julius AI for free using the link in description. Thank you, Julius AI, for sponsoring this section of the video. Now let's go back to Zach's salary progression to 600K.
In 2019, 2020, like Netflix changed. They changed a lot. So the big thing they did, so before they had 2 orgs. They had data engineering and infrastructure, and then they had data science and algorithms, 2 orgs, right? And then what they did in 2019 is they fired the data engineering leaders, all of them. My VP, my director, my manager, the whole chain just right, axed, right? And then they were like, oh yeah, we're not hiring him. We're not gonna rehire those leaders. You guys are all now part of data science. And for me, I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think, especially because the leaders that they let go, I really believed in. So I became very disillusioned about working there because I was like also just living in fear because I was like, okay, these leaders who I looked up to, like they taught me a lot. Like I feel like they were like some of the best people I've ever worked with, and like they're getting let go, and I didn't really get it. And I'm like, and I lost all motivation to work there. So I was like, I'm done. I'm not gonna work here anymore. And then I left. And I just like went on some soul searching for a bit because I realized at that point that work was my life. That was my entire life. That was everything. Right? And so like after I quit, there was some months there where I was like, who am I? Who am I as a person? Who is Zach, right? I was like, I had really lost in touch with like my own like person. And then 2020 pandemic, that year was wild. That year was so wild. And then ultimately I got in back at Airbnb like 9 months later. Right when I started at Airbnb, that was also when I started making content. Because I knew, because when I quit Netflix.
It's the work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's true for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
Google content.
Yeah, and for me, when I quit Netflix, I had a vision for myself that I was gonna be a creator. Because I vividly remember when I quit Netflix, the day I quit, when I was like, we had like a going away lunch, and when I was gone, I was like, when I gave a peace sign to all my coworkers, and I'm like, you're gonna see me again everywhere. That's what I said, right? I had a vision for myself then, and I wish I would have overcome some of that like depression and sadness in 2020 to start earlier. But I'm happy I started when I did, because like I was able to get in it and like just start growing, because it's all about like just getting that initial momentum of like, I'm gonna do this. This is my new thing, right? Then after a while, it's like compound interest just keeps you motivated after a while, you know?
So 600K at Airbnb.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's when you decided to leave altogether.
Yeah.
And when was it?
This was about a year ago, 2023. Yeah.
Okay, so for a year, you have been an entrepreneur, primarily focused on data engineering? What else?
Like data engineering, teaching, that's my big focus, yeah.
Okay, and how is that going? Do you miss corporate?
That's a great question. I miss some things about corporate, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I actually gave an interview a couple weeks ago. I had my own doubts. Like, the entrepreneur journey is very full of doubts itself. When you have employees and you need to make payroll and you have like all of this like pressure to like, you have to make sales. It's like, if you don't make sales, you're gonna have to fire people, right? It's like, there's like a lot of like consequences like when you're an entrepreneur that are like, when you're an engineer, you just don't think about them. You just think about solving the problem in front of you. I feel like for me, the things that I miss the most about corporate is, the big one is working on a team. Actually, like in an office. I miss the office actually a lot. That was actually one of the things that like I was like kind of seeking out, where I'm like, I need to like be around people and like work on problems together. I think that's the big thing I miss. I kind of also miss just like being able to just like not think about food and having to like feed myself 3 times a day.
It's
like,
a lot of work.
And when I worked at Meta, it was like they would give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's just like automated, and I don't have to think about it, right? That's also really nice. So I know that's a very tech bro take right there, but that's like, it is what it is, right?
No, it's a fair take. Free food, I'm there. Count me in.
The things I don't miss are like feeling like I'm in a situation that is outside of my control. Like I feel like one of the things that's great about an entrepreneur is it's extreme accountability. Like if you are successful, it's because of things you did. If you aren't successful, it's because of things that you did or didn't do.
So talking about data engineering, really quick, if somebody wants to get into data engineering, what should they learn? Where should they start? What's your advice to them?
That's great. I think there's a couple of things there. Like you have to learn the languages. Languages are like critical. It's like, because if you don't know the languages, you can't speak the stuff that's necessary. So you need SQL and Python are going to be the most important.
Okay.
If you're trying to be more like in the like cutting edge space, then maybe learn like Scala or Rust. Rust in particular is probably like in the future. Like give it like 5 years, it's going to be bigger. And then you need to know the tools. The tools are like Spark, Airflow, but there's like 5 million competitors for Airflow now. There's like Airflow, Mage, Prefect, Dagster, Databricks workflows, Azure workflows. There's like there's a lot of freaking ways to schedule a job, right? So, and just learning cron and how to schedule a job, and then picking one flavor of that. And then Spark is so important though. I think that Spark is going to keep being bigger. It's actually getting more adoption, which I think is crazy because it's been around for so long. It's been around for like 12 years, and it's like, and it still feels like it's in the, you know, the early part of the adoption curve. It hasn't leveled off yet. It's still growing, which boggles my mind. I feel so lucky that I like caught that in 2016 where I'm like, I'm going to learn Spark and it's going to be awesome. And I was right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think, and then the last important skill though is data modeling, because you got to remember that like, just because you have a pipeline that is productive and good and efficient, if it produces data that is annoying to use, then you drop all your value at the last mile, right? And that last mile of like, what is the contract between you and the data scientist, right? Like, what are the name? What do you name your columns? Make sure you don't have stupid column names. That's like, there's a lot of these things are actually very basic, but a lot of people get them wrong. You'll see it in the wild, even in big tech at companies where they pay people $500K, they still get it wrong. And so like getting that like modeling stuff right is very important. And I think that those are gonna be the three ones. Like, so orchestration, Spark, and modeling are going to be the big things. And then like where to start, I mean, my blog is pretty good. So blog.dataengineer.io, a lot of things there. I have a lot of roadmaps that go a lot more in detail than the last 2 minutes that I've said, but like that's gonna be a big one. And then there's like a big another thing to Google the Data Engineer Handbook. So I have a GitHub repository that has over 8,000 stars that has all the resources that you need to get into data engineering. And yeah, I built that like a couple months ago.
Below in the description,
yes, so. Awesome. Yeah, so that's how I'd say to get in for sure.
Okay, awesome, cool. Last thing, and then we'll close the video. AI.
Yeah.
Should data engineers be worried about AI?
I mean, great question. I think less worried than the current market makes it feel. Like sometimes it feels like, you know, there's like those things like Devin that are out there where it's like, look, this thing can just do your job, and it's like, no, it can't. Like I mean, but like there are spaces, right? Like I feel you need to be able to leverage AI in a way, like for example, for me, like when I have been building things like you can solve problems like so much faster, like if you just use AI, like, and like it's like I think of it more of like as like a super Google. It's like a Google that gives you an answer that might just be right, and you can paste it in and it just works, right? But not all the time. Obviously, you still need to know the nuances of things. But like I think as a tool, it's great, and I think there are going to be roles. I do think that there are. I mean, I do think that there's definitely some data engineering roles that are going to be replaced and changed, or like they're gonna morph, right? Because like, especially with like the combination of LLM generated stuff, and then you have like low code, no code tools, you know, like Fivetran and all those other kind of tools there. And when those things marry, and then you have like people who can create pipelines with like a sentence and Fivetran, then like there's gonna be a lot of those roles that right now are done like by a data engineer that don't need to be done by a data engineer. And that's why there's this new architecture that's coming out called data mesh, where you have people who like, because the data engineering pattern itself is in some ways kind of like a middleware, right? Because like you as a data engineer need to talk to the business and talk to the analysts and try to understand all the pieces of the puzzle, when like you aren't as close to the business yourself. Like you are like kind of in the middle. Ultimately, if the business owners, the people who are solving those problems directly, like, I don't know, it might be the PMs, it might be some other people. If those people can write the pipeline themselves and manage and maintain the pipeline themselves, it's a better ownership pattern. It's a more stable ownership pattern as well. And that's what data mesh is looking to solve. And I ultimately think that data mesh will work, even though I've seen it fail. I've seen it fail a bunch of times in companies, but I think it's because we don't quite have the tooling yet. And LLM is one of those things that's going to make that more likely to happen. Yeah, but for a lot of the data engineering roles, the ones that are not just like a select query and an aggregation, or like something that's just a little bit more like anything doing with like master data or machine learning or anything like in those areas, those roles are very safe, because those roles are just so nuanced and so difficult to get the model right that like you need to have that person with that expertise. So that's where, if you want to like have a safer data engineering role, lean more into like machine learning stuff, lean more into master data management, and because those roles are very safe. I do not see those roles going away anytime soon.
Awesome. Cool. Where can people find you? Yeah,
I mean, I'm on YouTube. Data with Zach is probably going to be the best place. You can also find me anywhere on the internet. My username is Exactly, ECZACHLY. And that's, those are going to be the main places.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. And hopefully people watching, they learned something watching from this video. So
thank you
for sure.
So much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. All right, bye.
So good.